Okay, I think we are about to be streaming live. This is exciting. We got somebody here on, we got not more than one. We got some people on our attendees, people using last week's link. That's great. Good to see you guys. And we're just going to get started in a second as soon as we're on YouTube. I have the YouTube link to my right, so I'm able to see how that's doing. And here we go. Oh, you hear me? You hear me? I'm on. Somebody here on, okay, that's muted. All right. So I want to welcome you, Rabbi Ciment, and you welcome me because this is our show, to another edition of By the Way. Now, this is our first edition of By the Way because we named it By the Way in the middle of the session. Rabbi Ciment, try to cough a little lower, right?
Appreciate it.
Yeah. And so we are going to just explain why we called it By the Way. You're going to notice over the course of this show, we say by the way a lot. We realize we're self-aware rabbis. We realize we say the words by the way a lot. And really everything that the show is all of the stuff that happens in between us saying by the way, right? That's what this is. How are you, Rabbi Ciment? How was your week?
It was fantastic. And by the way,
there we go.
We for all of those Talmidim that haven't yet seen you in many, many weeks, they perhaps don't recognize you because you have this gigantic, ginormous beard. And by the way, you mentioned that it's coming off tomorrow on the way.
Yeah. I'll tell you, let me explain to you my beard story. And so some people have heard this already. Some people have, some of my students have heard this. The sad news, I lost my dad a few months ago, right when the whole Corona thing hit. I didn't have really normal Shiva. I didn't have a minute to be able to say Kaddish, like none of that stuff was happening. And really, I couldn't say Kaddish. So this was my Kaddish. It was like sort of I could look in the mirror and it was my thing. So that's what I tell my wife at least. And she believed it. And that's really nice of her. And then shul opened up. So now I lost my excuse and this opportunity to grow a beard, which I never really had before because I think people would think I was too nuts. But I learned a lot about the beard, I got to say. Have you ever had a beard this long, Rabbi Ciment?
Never had a beard that long, actually.
No, whatever. I'm just saying. So now, I learned two things about the beard. Thing number one, it's like a pet. It's like furry, and it's like a fidget spinner. It's like somewhere between a pet and a fidget spinner. I always got something to do. I'm always occupied, and I get it. I totally get the appeal. The problem is the masks. So my shul, we're still outside davening in masks. It doesn't, there are two issues. The mask doesn't go over the chin. It's supposed to go over the chin and it doesn't. The beard's pushing it out. And then you got another issue. You know what, your hat? So I'm going to take this off and you know why I'm wearing it. And I know why you're wearing that. But we're going to take this off. And when I take this off, I'm going to have terrible hat hair. It's going to be a disaster. Hat hair is a disaster. I get mask hair. It's crazy. It's like I look like a tornado hit. It's crazy. And so, yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off, but the only reason why I actually brought in the beard issue, not because I don't care about your beard and it's powerful, but at the end of the night, at the end of the day, this is about basketball. We left off last week about basketball, and this week we're going to continue with basketball. And you brought up a very profound statement. Now, what does that have to do with a beard? Because we ended off last week speaking about LeBron James, and LeBron James actually grew a Corona beard. His beard, by the way, if you're talking about a beard that's ginormous and can't get a mask over it, LeBron James' beard is a tremendously long beard. I don't know if you can share screen and let everyone see that. So that segues us into what you were talking about last week.
I see what you did there.
LeBron James. So take it away. Remind me what you were talking about last week.
Yeah. I made a bit of a controversial statement. You had asked the question last week, and I'm glad we have Coach Steinmetz. We'll get to him in just a second. You had asked a question last week about whether or not pop stars or sports players can be effective role models. Do I have any, or is that like a thing that I believe in? And I said, yeah, there are a couple of people who I think have that potential of being these real figures that are going to affect culture for a very long time. And you asked me who I said, and I said LeBron James. And by the way, that's before I knew about the beard. So it wasn't the beard that convinced me. And so my perspective about LeBron James is as follows. I never really was omeid on this. I never really got this until I saw The Last Dance. Now, I will admit, ready? I will admit, I watched The Last Dance I didn't see it Sunday night. When it came out, I wasn't like that crazy. But over the course of the week, I'd make sure to get that done. And so it was fantastic for me because I missed that season. I was in Israel. I was like Shana Bet or something. I missed the whole thing. So like a lot of these stories were brand new. And particularly they got to that story where Michael Jordan was criticized for not coming out against a certain politician who I believe he had racist views. And his answer was Republicans buy sneakers too. Do you remember that? Republicans buy sneakers too. And so it probably was just like a one-off comment. He probably didn't mean something so seriously by it, but what he got censored and people were so mad at him about it. And it sort of contrasted because remember a few years before in 1993 it was, I'm sure if Coach was listening, I'm sure he remembers, we'll get him on in a second. But when they had that Barkley commercial where Barkley said, I am not a role model. All I do is put basketballs in baskets. I can shoot, I can dunk a ball. And suddenly Jordan is saying like, whatever, I'm not going to get into politics because I don't want to ruin my endorsements and my sponsorships. But LeBron's very different. And that was the point that I was making. LeBron is very vocal. He is very vocal. He doesn't, it could be that all of his sponsorships and all of his endorsements are right behind what he's saying, but I think he's willing to take risks. And I think he's willing to get into art and culture. And over the next couple of years, I think he's going to be a voice in that world. Whether you agree with him or you don't agree with him, I just think personality-wise, he's willing to take that risk. What do you think?
So that's an excellent point. There's no question about it that LeBron James has done that. But before we get to what I think, we want to bring in Coach Steinmetz and actually find out what he thinks. So if we can put on Coach and hear from Coach.
So exciting. I'm like, there he is.
First of all, Coach, first of all, I just want to introduce, and again, Coach doesn't need any introduction. I mean, what he's done, he's galvanized. He's brought together the most amazing thing. I was at that championship game that we won, mind you, flex. I was at that game, and by the way, I tell every single player in Yeshiva University, this was your win. This is all of us. And I was at that game, and I looked around the stands, and I saw Jews with no yarmulkes, with black yarmulkes, with knitted yarmulkes, with velvet yarmulkes, with suede yarmulkes, with black hats, with tzitzis, without tzitzis. It was the most inspiring, even talking about it, I'm getting chills up and down my spine. So the way I think about it, what none of us on this, both you and I, Rabbi Ismach, weren't able to do by bringing people and Jews together, Coach Steinmetz was able to do it by being able to bring together all these different players and play basketball on the highest level and really make a Kiddush Hashem. So Coach, it's an unbelievable honor to have you here. And I guess what Rabbi Ismach was talking about in terms of sports players being role models, whether it's LeBron James or your own players, what's your opinion on that? Whether it's LeBron James, Michael Jordan, or Ryan Terrell, and I got to throw his name out there because I love him, Donnie Katz.
I mean, I think it's one of those things that it's whether it's right or wrong, whether, there's arguments all the time, whether athletes should be role models, whether it's right or wrong, it's the case. It's just the bottom line. I mean, athletes, whether it's in elementary school or, very often the more popular, cool kids, so to speak, same thing moving up through high school where, they become kind of the leaders. And then obviously as you go into the college and certainly on the professional level, it's just, there's a reason they make the money they do on the professional level. People look up to them and people want to emulate them and be like them in every way. I mean, you're talking about some of the old commercials, the most famous, one of the most famous marketing moves of all time was be like Mike. So that concept of a role model in sports, whether it's right or wrong, it is the case. And I think, the responsibility obviously is on the person looking for the role model to find that person who has the right way of kind of handling that and carrying it. So, I would think very often, in our case, certainly our college guys might do a better job with that than a lot of pros do. But you certainly have a lot of pros out there who, really carry themselves well, and whatever their opinions are are what they are, and people could choose to look up to them and agree with them, but it's really about how they kind of handle themselves. Classic example to me was always, and I know it's shifting over to a different world, but Derek Jeter. In the kind of the way he carried himself. And, honestly, I'm not even sure I would know what his political views are or anything like that. It was just the way he talked to the press and the way he talked to people and the way he, treated teammates around him, from what you saw as part of the public, made him somebody that I thought, would be a comfortable person to kind of look up to as a role model.
So, Coach, let me follow up that question. I'm only because I'm super curious, the process and all the stuff that was involved in making the team that you did. You have a lot to talk about in the locker room, when it comes to figuring out plans and plays and matchups, etc. How much time did you spend on that theme of YU, the Jewish school, representing, what it represents, whether we like it or not? Because I know when they did that video of all the guys, that was like a theme that they were saying.
Right.
Did that come from you? To what extent? How much time did you spend on that? And did you find it hard to also have to be talking about that in addition to everything else that you were trying to do in the locker room?
So, first of all, we don't talk as much basketball in the locker room as people probably think. There's no brilliant new ideas that are coming out at halftime. We come out of a game where we're struggling in the first half, and then we come out in the second half and we blow a team out. And everyone likes to come over afterwards. Oh, great adjustments, brilliant job. We don't change anything. It's really just kind of about calming down, changing mentality, and getting kind of the guys on the right page. But we're not changing what we're running. We're not changing what we're executing on the court.
It's like Yom Kippur. It's like Yom Kippur. It's a pause, but nothing really changes. We got
it. Yes, yeah. Exactly. So it's nothing so brilliant, but in terms of the concept of what playing for YU obviously represents, and the responsibility that I think our guys have on their shoulders, people often ask if there's a lot of pressure. We are probably the closest thing in Division III to the way a D1 program gets treated by its fans. Our games are packed. You have kids coming over for autographs and pictures afterwards. Constant media requests and we had a ton of obviously Zoom requests and things like that, certainly after the season. And, I don't think one of the things I think is special and unique about the kids that we have at YU and on the team in specific is they don't look at it as pressure. They look at it as a positive responsibility. And we do discuss it. I wouldn't say it's something that we need to discuss throughout the course of the season, because they're generally mature, smart kids, and they know exactly what they represent, and they know exactly what that responsibility is. But we have that conversation, usually preseason, to talk about it. Every so often we'll reference it during the year, maybe after a big game and, the crowd is crazy, and we'll kind of reflect on the fact that there's just so many people who are inspired by it and kind of in touch because of it. So it's, I think it's a very cool thing. And I think our guys really, they take it on in a very good way.
Coach, I just to piggyback what you were saying right now. First of all, it's great. In my day, Rabbi Ismach spoke about a commercial in the 90s or in the 80s. There was once a commercial that I'm not only the president, but I'm also a client. I don't know if you remember that commercial. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't say what it was for.
By the way, it's just saying none of us are clients. None of us are clients.
Coach, I specifically didn't say it was for a hair loss program, because I get it. I get it.
Thank you for making us feel bad, Rabbi Ciment. Thank you.
Hey, if you would know what's under this yarmulke, you wouldn't be saying that. But in any event, I think why the message carries so much weight coming from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, is because our student athletes are asked to really do something that no college athlete in the entire world is expected to do. And I'm talking about, if you're in Duke and you're in Michigan and you're in Michigan State, you're asked to take probably, when I was growing up and I used to see their major, everybody had, a criminal justice major. I mean, at the end of the day, our guys are taking rigorous courses. On top of that, they also have their religious responsibilities and their religious courses. And on top of that, they're asked to play basketball. And I think what greater role model than you? I mean, you're, if I'm not mistaken, a partner of a big time law firm, and you're also carrying a double load or a triple load, meaning you're also a religious Jew who has his religious observances as well, and you have your familial responsibilities, and you also have, your full-time occupation. You're not making it rich by coming on to our talk show. You know what I mean? So you have all these responsibilities.
My agent wasn't in touch.
You have all these responsibilities, and on top of that, you're coaching a Division III, powerhouse, and we are, because at the end of the day, whether you want to say I have a life or don't have a life, Rabbi Ismach, as soon as we won our last game in the NCAA tournament, I went immediately to the number 3 seeded team, and I watched the game that they played on Friday night before. And I'm telling you, Coach, I was already breaking down film. I was breaking down film just in case I needed
on Shabbos. On Shabbos, he was breaking down film.
No, because let's say Coach Stein, let's say you had like a big law case and I needed to step in and coach the team. How was I going to coach the team if I didn't already break down film already? So there I was breaking down film, watching these players. We would have beaten them by 30. And by the way, while we're speaking about 30, let's give a shout out to Ryan Terrell, who averaged 30 a game on the biggest stage in Division III. I mean, it's just astounding. That's Michael Jordan-esque, where on the biggest stage you rise to the occasion, which brings me to my next point of speaking a little bit about this. The only way to say it is he is a bona fide star that comes around once every 75 years, as far as I'm concerned. Can you just elaborate on what it is to coach such a talent and such a player, and also what it took to get him to us? I mean, that's tremendous. Please, Coach, take it away.
I hope it's more often than once every 75 years. But he's even more than a ball player. He's a very, very coachable and really good kid from a good family, and it's. I think it's funny. I did a podcast last night. Not from our world per se, but a guy who focuses a little bit on like the mental side of the game and consults a little bit with some Division I and professional teams. And actually, one of the questions he asked me was the same thing. He was asking me about Ryan and kind of his trajectory and how he's improved from year to year and what we see going forward. But then also kind of how the heck did he end up at yeshiva? And I think, my answer to him, and I think it's, the same thing I'll say here was it's a testament to Ryan and the kind of kid he is. A lot of kids have dreams of playing Division I, and I frankly don't have a problem with it. It's, I think, a great thing. My own kid's going to do it in a different sport. So it's not
Fordham baseball.
Fordham baseball. That's right. So, it's not something that I look down on or think, negatively of. I think it's a great dream to have, but it takes a very confident and unique and special kind of kid to recognize that the talent that he has is that level, to get the offers that he got, and then to kind of turn it all down and turn around and say, I want to be part of something special. I want to be part of something that's, that I have a background in terms of, that pride in being a Jew, and doing it on that stage at Yeshiva University. And Ryan was that kid. And, I remember still, I think it was beginning of his 12th grade or something like that, where he called me up and he's like, look, I got all these offers, and, I know where I stand, and I know how, I know what I could do, but, I want to come play at Yeshiva. There's no doubt, along with some of the players you've already mentioned, guys like Donnie and Simcha and Gabe, and many others, they've kind of, turn this whole program onto a different level.
That's awesome. First of all, Rabbi Ismach, did you have a question? If not, I'm going to piggyback.
Yeah. On that topic. So like, it's such an interesting, I guess, basketball meets idealism, which is such a nice thing to hear, because I think, YU is all about idealism meets everything else. It's like sort of this melding of, Torah, Mada, and all that Mada means. What about you? So, do you see this as the pinnacle of Jewish coaching? Are you headed towards something different, something D1, D2? Is that something which you have ambitions for towards, or is this the pinnacle of finding that melding balance that your boys have?
So I've been asked that a lot. If you asked me 6 years ago when I was applying for the job, I probably would have a different answer then than I did now. I probably at the time was looking at it as kind of a stepping stone. I was very into the coaching, certainly at the high school level. I was coaching a little bit overseas with Maccabiah and stuff, and I had the opportunity, to coach the 18 under US team in Israel for the Maccabiah games, and I got to coach kids who were Division I players, and 4 or 5 that are playing professionally now in Israel, and I kind of was looking at that as possibly something I could, work towards. And, when the yeshiva job became an opportunity, if you would have asked me honestly, then I wouldn't have told you, because I was obviously trying to get the job. But, I was probably looking at it as somewhat of a stepping stone and an opportunity to use contacts that I have in Division I game and maybe, ultimately end up there. But I'm not sure it took more than 3-4 months in where my mind completely changed on that. I mean, first of all, I have my law practice, which I love, and I'm extremely passionate about. And it's, one of the great things that I was able to do at yeshiva that I would not be able to do in a lot of places is the fact that I'm able to have it as a part-time coaching job and kind of have that passion and put that energy into it, as a secondary thing, and then still build my law practice and work with my clients and be in that, in the commercial real estate world. But at the same time, I still remember walking into our first scrimmage that first year that I was coaching at Bard College upstate in upstate New York. And I remember walking in, wearing yarmulke, walking onto the court and just feeling that like minute of just discomfort of, walking into a kind of a strange place with yarmulke on, and then remembering just like loving that feeling because I had 15 guys walking in behind me, some wear yarmulke, some don't, but all representing the same thing. And I fell in love with that feeling, and it's not something that I have any idea of giving up. So I love where I am. I do look at it as the pinnacle, and something that I would, I'll probably want to do as long as while you will have me.
First of all, Coach, just to speak about that for a little bit. I believe firmly, and this is a conversation that I have with my students all the time. Now, a lot of your players, you and I share the same students. You're an educator as I am.
Wait,
educating these guys.
I gotta stop you. All the guys in my share are very upset that none of them are on the team. So I don't know if it has anything to do with the fact that they're not that good at basketball, and I apologize to them. It could be, but if I could put in an appeal, like a lot of guys have gone from Ciment to what?
First of all, by the way, Rabbi Ismach, you should just know, Coach, hear me out for 1 second, then I want to get to a point that you mentioned. Coach is awesome, and I want to share a story that happened in the beginning of the year. Now, mind you, Coach is all business. Coach is coming here to win a championship, period. No questions asked. But I have a student in my shir, besides Terrell and Katz, and by the way, we got to say, if I don't mention Caleb's name on here, Coach, you know as well as I do, he ain't talking to me or you again. So Caleb, your name is mentioned, okay? We mentioned you. So and obviously, Ryan and Kevin Boker, all these guys are in the shir, and if I didn't mention anybody, I apologize. But there was one guy in my shir that we made a little bet together, and I said, you know what? Okay, you got me, but you got to do me one favor. You got to try out for the YU basketball team.
I remember this kid.
Mind you, he's 5'3".
Yeah.
He's 5'3". With like a good day. I don't know if you remember Fletch when he was wearing his afro, like 5'9" and 6'1" with the afro. Like, I don't know if you remember that, Coach. But in any event, but not only did he have to like try out for the team 5'2" on a good day, but he had to wear spandex, and every time he was taking a shot, he had to scream Kobe, and when everyone's on free throws, he's shooting layups, and when they're doing layups, he's shooting 3-point shots. And so he actually went to tryouts and was doing all this crazy stuff. Coach got wind of what was going on, and Coach played along with it. I think he called him in at the end and was speaking all about this guy. And then on top of that, you're a busy man. You wrote him a beautiful email. I don't know if you remember that. You wrote him a beautiful email welcoming him to the team. You've never seen anyone practice with as much enthusiasm and excitement. And, you know, you wish all your players were like that. I mean, that's awesome. That's someone who is building a chemistry, building a rapport with his guys. Now, a couple of things. You were speaking about Ryan Terrell. What do you think Ryan Terrell says about you? It happens to be, if you were gonna say 2 words that Ryan Terrell would describe you as, what would it be? 2 words. Give me 2 words. If he were to describe you, what would he say about you?
I don't know. That's a tough one. Ryan and I have a very, very good relationship. We get along really, really well. And you know what I think is great about my relationship with him is that it's just very, very open. Like we can kind of like call each other out.
I just got the chills, 1 for 1. If this was a newlywed married game, first thing he said, straight shooter. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 for 1. Coach, come on. That's that. By the way, that's a marriage. You guys probably spend more time. Brother, he probably spends more time with you than probably any person in the world. Give me the second adjective to describe you than you would say Ryan would say about you.
I don't know the answer to that.
You gotta go out on top.
Wait. It's on his fingertips.
Calm. I don't know.
Competitive.
Competitive is probably a good one.
Competitive. You want to beat the guy that's sitting across from you like no one can believe, which is, by the way, exactly what you want to see as a player. You want to see your coach, the juices are flowing, and they want to know that when they're going into battle, their coach wants to beat the guy sitting across from him. That's awesome.
So
probably to an unhealthy level, but yeah.
We're all like that. Coach, let me ask you a question. I when I sit at these games, I don't know if you ever saw me. I sit in the back. I'm the guy shrieking because I get so into it. I mean, it's unhealthy. I get my heart's palpitating. You know, those few games, there weren't that many, thank God. Usually the game was decided in the first 5 or 6 minutes, but there were some games that just
it wasn't always like that. I know.
I understand.
People think it's gotten so easy. People think.
I'm a bandwagon guy. I don't know what to tell you. I'm there because you're awesome. So what happened was I would find myself like nervous, like really, really, really nervous, and I'm thinking the players can't possibly feel like that because you can't shoot when you feel like that. They have to have their nerves under control. But what about you? Where are you on that? Are you like me, palpitating because like you're not physically in it and you don't have that, I guess, training to overcome that? Well, what are you thinking in that last minute of the game?
So players have it easier, obviously, because they're on the court. So I remember when I played in high school and college, I used to be like crazy nervous before games. I couldn't eat for 5 hours before a game. You have some guys who don't care, by the way. Like I remember I played with Yossi Gev, who's the all-time leading scorer at Yeshiva. And I remember we'd walk into the trainer's room before the game, and I haven't eaten in 4 hours because I'm just freaking out before the game. And he's sitting on the trainer's table with 2 hot dogs getting his ankles taped. So everybody has a different perspective as a player. But once you get out, when you're a player, even if you're a guy who gets nervous before games, once you get out on the court, it all goes away because the adrenaline kicks in. And, as a coach, I get more nervous before games as a coach than I did as a player. But there's something about once that competition starts, it becomes fun and it just becomes, you're kind of like in the moment. So I don't feel like that during games. The semifinal game this year was as much of a nail biter as we probably ever had at Yeshiva.
Oh my God, I'm verklempt. I'm verklempt thinking about that game.
Yeah, but it's funny. I was talking to Rabbi Josh Joseph the other day, and he was remembering that with about 3 minutes left in that game, we were down. I turned around. He was sitting behind me at the game, and I turned around from my seat, and then I see him, and he's kind of like, I don't know if he was saying to him. I don't know what he was doing, but I turned around, I looked at him. I'm like, "Are you having fun?" He's like, "No, not at all." And I'm like, I'm having fun. Like at that point, like you're in the moment. It's the that kind of competition is kind of getting to you, and also you have to remember, I'm very lucky. I get to look out on the court, and I see Simcha Halpert and Ryan Terrell and Gabe Leifer and Donnie Katz and Eitan Halpert and Ofek Reef, and I'm looking at all these guys out there. We got a pretty good chance.
First of all, what you accomplished is just astounding. If you don't mind, do you still have some time for a few more questions? At least I have a few, and it could be Rabbi Ismach does as well.
I want to pause. I want to thank all the guys who are on the Zoom. A lot of guys came in on the Zoom link from last week, and they're guys on YouTube and on Zoom. And this is just like, it's just great to have you all here. By the way, I'm gonna just interject because you were talking about hot dogs. You played a lot of Saturday night games. Were there instructions given to the guys about like what they can and cannot eat on Shabbos at Shabbos lunch?
Everyone except Donnie Katz. Everyone except Donnie Katz was given instructions.
That would have been
Donnie Katz is eating whatever he wants, but
that's it.
they kind of know themselves what's good and what's not. But we always know with Saturday night games, for the first like 6 minutes, we kind of just lay off of them. Like we know that first 6 minutes is kind of just whatever it is, and then we have to recover from there. It's usually a little slow out of the gate on Saturday nights. It could be scary, especially when you're dealing with like a big game or against a good team where you can get down quickly. But it's kind of it's what makes us unique. It's what makes it special. I mean, we talked about it throughout the NCAA tournament. We have the mandatory press conference after the game, and of course, being yeshiva, and especially with what was going on this year with the COVID stuff, the press conference was packed after the game with all kinds of mainstream media, and the question they all want to ask is how you're handling, after we won Friday afternoon, how are you handling the next 24 hours? There's no practice, there's no film session. We wouldn't even allow our guys to read Scout over Shabbos, and it was just how are you going to prepare? And it's an easy answer because it's just it's how we grew up and it's what we do. But they don't get it, but it's what makes us unique. So we know going into Saturday night game is going to be a tough start. We're not going to have shoot around during the day. It's a little less preparation. Guys are coming off of Shabbos and whatever they do on Shabbos and whatever they eat on Shabbos and all those things. But that's what makes us who we are. That's
amazing. First of all, I guess speaking about Shabbos brings me to my next question. And, you see a lot of players and there are a lot of good players in Yeshiva League or Yeshiva-like type of schools. And they've decided, and D1 talent, and they decided to take their talent to D1. So question number one, that D1 talent, are you convincing him not to play in D1 and say, come to our Division III? And if you are saying that to them, what is your pitch? Like, for example, let's use an example again.
Rabbi, 1 second, Rabbi Ciment shear. I mean, isn't that what he uses? Like, you can come to D3, go to YU, and be in Rabbi Ciment shear. That would do it for me, frankly.
Hey, Rabbi, who doesn't want to be in Rabbi Ciment shear? That's what I'm saying.
I hear that.
But my question is let's use an example of a guy like Ethan Lasko. Ethan Lasko played Indiana as a walk-on, didn't get a scholarship, played as a walk-on. While he's averaging not even a point or a minute a game, Ryan Terrell is winning Rookie of the Year. Then he transfers his second year to Manhattan, which is a mid-major D1, and he's maybe playing 4 minutes a game at best, while Ryan Terrell is going far into the NCAA's, averaging 23.9 points a game. Are you telling, basically what I'm asking, is it better just to be in a D1? A guy who's going to D1, are you saying, look, there's something I can talk to you about? Or meaning, what's your pitch? When you're going to his living room and speaking to his mother, what's your pitch?
So I'll stay away from the specific players just because NCAA reasons, obviously. But but in general, if you have a kid who is considering going to D1, that has a legit shot at it. I don't ever try to discourage a kid, and I have when I recruit, I have certain like policies that I keep on myself. One of them is I always speak frankly to a kid. So if I don't think a kid is good enough, I tell him. I'll be nice about it. It might be, or if I'm telling the parent, I'm telling the parent. If sometimes a parent will call me. I very often will send, if people reach out that are not necessarily understanding the level that our guys are playing on, I'll send them game film and I'll ask them to watch it before they reach out. 90% of the time they don't reach back out. I try to be very, very honest with kids on where they stand. It's something I actually saw through the recruiting process with my own kid that I respected a ton from some of the coaches that we dealt with. So I try to do the same thing. The other thing is I don't ever talk badly about another program, whether it's D1, D2, or D3. So if we have a kid who we're recruiting who's being recruited by other schools, even in our conference, I'll tell them, I will either not say anything, or I'll tell them positive things about the other school. I know some of the schools in our conferences have terrific coaches that are terrific human beings that they could probably learn a lot from. I'll focus more on what our positives are and what we can, kind of bring to the table. When you're talking about the D1 versus D3 aspect, it's a tough thing. There's two main things that I have to kind of separate. One of them is the money aspect, right? Because D1, a kid can potentially get an athletic scholarship and not pay for school. Very, very tough if it's a kid who's looking to do that, to compete with that, especially with the parents who are potentially looking at a free education for college. And if they're, willing to go down that road from a religious perspective and make it work, then it's very, very tough to compete with that, because we're not allowed to give athletic scholarships. The second part is if a kid has that, if that's actually a kid's dream. If the kid's dream is to go play Division I don't want to discourage it. What I will do is I'll try to sell them on the concept of doing something special at a place that really matters, and being somewhere where there's a real pride, not just within the team, because there is that family atmosphere, and I think we have an advantage within our own team by the fact that these kids are all from similar backgrounds. There's a family feel, and there's an actual pride for the school they play for, which, most schools that we play, the kids that are playing for those schools, it's not their first choice. Their first choice was probably D1 or D2, and they ended up, in whatever D3 school that they're in, because they didn't get the looks they wanted. Our guys are mostly in their first choice. And I think that's a tremendous advantage, and our guys kind of play that way because they take care of each other. So it's not just selling them on the fact that our team is that way, but it's the entire university and the fan base is like that. So you're now playing for a school where you're sort of matching that Division I energy, on the Division III level, and doing it with a level of pride in your background and in your traditions and in your religion that you wouldn't get anywhere else. So, I try to push it on that. And if it's something that's important to a kid, like it was to Ryan, then we, potentially could end up with that, with a steal in terms of that level of talent. It's the same thing with Ofek. Ofek could have gone other places as well. And he had a certain pride and a certain, willingness to come here and kind of do something special.
By the way, he is a great kid.
Super kid.
You should just know, Coach, let me tell you about Ofek. I don't know how to speak Hebrew, and my daughter is taking a Hebrew class. I dial Ofek, and he helps me every single time. I put him on speaker, and he helps my daughter with her Hebrew homework. These are the guys in the team. Yeah. And there's so many other stories I can tell you about Ofek and Ryan and so many of the other guys in terms of being a role model and just being out there. I always speak to Ryan all the time about the platform that he has. He came to Yeshiva University to do something special in basketball, but also in a religious way. He's a Shomer Shabbos, and he's committed to that lifestyle, that way of life. He asks questions all the time about, different things. And again, that also comes from, the type of family that he comes from and the type of conviction that he has. So I think that's amazing. It's and that's from you. You've also created something extremely special. First of all, before we continue, I just want to give a shout out to Ozzie Galbit, Charles Gibber, and Zachary Jonathan Gibber as well, and to Coach Daniel Gibber. They're all dear friends, and obviously I know that Coach Gibber has coached against you and competed against you on the high school level.
By the way.
Yes.
By the way.
Yes, we got it. By the way, I hope that's recorded, because that's going to be our. Oh gosh.
Daniel Gibber, when I got in, is he on here? He's watching?
By the way, can I call him right now and tell him to get on, please?
You can.
Hold on.
But he knows this. He's heard it 8 million times.
By the way, it could be that he is on. If you just give me 1 second over here. It could be that he's on.
While you're looking, Coach, do you have any stories that, Rabbi Ciment's point about the greatest people?
Wait, hold on 1 second right there. Coach Gibber, Coach Simons was about to tell a story about you. Why are you not on?
I'm on right now.
He's on, by the way. Billy, that's called a guy who you call his number and he just doesn't show up. Get on here, Coach. Come on.
I'm watching you on my YouTube. Jonathan just brought it to me.
Oh, there you go.
Are you serious?
See?
Okay. By the way, so his son was watching and his son brought it to him. By the way, just for all those out there, there are 1,000 people watching Coach Steinmetz.
That's my guy, Coach Steinmetz.
Okay, Coach, speak. Coach Gibber is on the phone. He's listening to you, and you can respond, Coach Gibber. Take it away.
So first of all, Daniel helped me get my first coaching job ever, which was at Hank. And not only that, after I took the job, I called him up and I'm like, okay, it's really great that I got the job. I don't know what to do. So Daniel says, no problem. And I think he was living on the Upper West Side at the time, right?
Hold on, Coach Steinmetz, how are you?
Wait, Coach, he's in the middle of telling the story of how you got him started in coaching. Let Coach Steinmetz just say the story. I'm excited.
Let me hear it.
So I called him up. I think he was living on the Upper West Side at the time, and I went over on whatever weeknight it was to his apartment. He literally spent like 3 hours sitting with me, just kind of going through concepts, going through how to run a practice. Gave me a whole bunch of like coaching videotapes that he had used to borrow. I think I probably still have them. But he just, yeah. But basically for those first few years where I started coaching, he was kind of the guy that I would call up and just ask questions and run things off of. And it's funny that you mentioned him on this call. That's all.
But by the way, this is a huge moment where Coach Steinmetz has reached the pinnacle. He's reached the highest point that a coach can reach in our world, and he's coming back online in front of thousands of people, coming and giving a shout out and an appreciation to the guy who got him started in the business.
Well, Rabbi,
wow.
Let me tell you that I've had tremendous hana from watching Coach Steinmetz. I remember when he first started the Yeshiva League, and I have been front and center watching his incredible climb, how he's been a great leader, and he's built the Yeshiva University program into the pinnacle, and it's been really a pleasure to watch. Unbelievable job he's been doing. First of all,
Coach Gibber, while we have you on, let me ask you a question. I know that you were very, very instrumental and very out in the forefront in when Yeshiva was looking for a coach. I know through my sources that you were out in front saying it's got to be Coach Steinmetz. Coach Steinmetz, you were from the outset. What was it?
I had the privilege. Yes, keep going.
What was it that you saw? What was it that you saw in Coach Steinmetz that said that this guy? Because I know you, Coach Gibber. I know you. You want a role model. You want a guy who knows the X and O's. You want a guy who's got leadership qualities. You want a guy who can recruit. What did you see in him that saw that this guy is what it's going to be? This guy is going to get gold. What was it?
Rabbi Ciment, it's very simple. I had the pleasure, as you said, of being very involved in the process. I had the honor of serving on the search committee. And there were many different wonderful, experienced people and different personalities, different backgrounds on the search committee. And I was proud to be one of the people on the committee who was very much in Coach Steinmetz's corner. To answer your question, the answer is passion. There's nobody who had the passion that Elliot had for that job. And to be honest, when I first made the very first phone call to the principal of Hank many years ago, when Elliot got involved in coaching the Yeshiva League, Coach Steinmetz, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were up for the job against maybe a very experienced public school coach at the time.
Wow.
And I remember the rabbi from Hank asking me, why would I hire Elliot Steinmetz when I could hire this coach who's been coaching 25 years in public school? I said, well, if your requirement for the job is extensive experience, Elliot's not going to be your guy. But if you want the guy who's going to be the most passionate guy for that job and going to give his right hand for those kids and put his whole heart and soul into it, I said, Elliot Steinmetz is your guy. So that was when it came to Yeshiva. He's one of us. He's a Yeshiva guy, a Yeshiva player. And the other coaches, or I should say some of the other coaches who were finalists and who were up for the job, some wonderful coaches, I felt they were, trying to climb the career ladder in the coaching ranks. And Yeshiva was just another step in that ladder. But for Coach Steinmetz, it was his dream job and something he's proven what's been going on the last 6 or 7 years, how he's taken that program to unprecedented heights because of his incredible passion and commitment and all the things you mentioned and the great role model he's been. I don't think in our wildest dreams we could have expected the Yeshiva program to be where it is today under Coach Steinmetz.
And by the way, these are guys that are getting up at 6. No, practice is at 6 a.m. Practice is at 6 a.m., which means these guys are getting up at 5:30 in the morning and practicing for 3 hours. It's astounding what he's accomplished. Hey, it's great because now they're coming to Shir on time. Thanks, Coach.
Rabbi, so then would you agree? And anything you do in life, whether it's sports or coaching or being a Jew or doing your job or whatever it is, don't do it if you're not going to put your entire heart into it. And I think Elliot has taught us that, what he's done with that program and how he has those guys committed at such an early hour, and they practice every day. And I think the answer is that Elliot leads by example, what it means to put your entire heart into something. And that's an example for all of us, whether it's sports, basketball, our jobs, being a Jew, anything you do, there's nobody who can show you how to put your whole heart into something like Elliot. And I think he's shown that.
It's true. By the way, Coach Steinmetz, if this wasn't worth it to come on just for Coach Daniel Gibber.
I mentioned I was going to have my agent reach out, right? So.
Coach Steinmetz, it's been a pleasure. I've been watching Elliot for so many years. We've been colleagues, we've been friends, we've been, and what he's done has brought me immense joy, and it's just an incredible thing to watch.
Wow. Right now we need some Rocky music. Rabbi Ismach.
Yeah, I wish they said this stuff about Rabbi.
Coach Gibber, you're the best. I'll speak to you later.
Great to talk to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
you.
man. I wish, and here's my question, Coach, and we have just a couple minutes left. Rabbi Ciment mentioned this, YU has an incredibly diverse crowd. What would be the one thing that unifies everybody? So it's an interesting question. Is it the base medrash? Not necessarily. We'd like to think maybe it should be, but it isn't. But somehow your team and what you guys did, whether or not you were, sort of unfinished business and all those frustrations, but even up until that point, you were that great unifier. Did you, besides for the crowd, and like Rabbi Ciment mentioned before, the tzitzis and the yarmulkes and all the different crowd, and by the way, it wasn't just YU. It was like Klal Yisrael walking in. I know guys and kids from all sorts of yeshivas. It was a place to be. And then the Svarim sale hit. Good God.
By the way, if I'm not mistaken, Ethan Lasko was in the audience as well. I'm just saying. Continue.
But do you have any any anecdotes, anything that you came across this great unifying element over the course of this crazy season? Do you have any stories to share?
So yeah, I have one that you'll love.
Great question.
Championship game of the Skyline, right? We're playing purchase and gym is packed. Well, what was the score after 3 minutes? 13-2.
Yeah, we about gosh.
Which, by the way, it was the same thing 2 years ago, whatever it was, when we were in their gym and we were just getting killed in the beginning of the game. But we're down 13-2, and I'm watching. So we end up coming back. We have a great run. I think we went on a 20-2 run or something like that, and took control of the game and never looked back. I'm watching the film of the game, a couple of days later, or a couple weeks later, or whatever it was. And as we get to that, that point where we're down 13-2, we're coming up court, or towards the front entrance, right? We're going that direction away from our bench, and we're coming up court, and I see the door opens and in walks Rav Willig. Okay?
He was there.
And the Rav walks, he goes and he sits down in the middle, in the middle of the court and thing, and he puts his hands up in the air like this, and all of a sudden we're going a 20-0 run.
It was like Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu with Amalek. Moshe puts up his hands, and the Jewish people start being victorious.
But to me, what was great was the fact that there were a lot of Rosh Yeshiva and a lot of Rebbeim and a lot of teachers and just a lot of different people from different parts of the school that are not necessarily connected to the athletics program or to the basketball team in any way, that bought into that moment. They bought into what it meant on more than just the basketball level, which is the point, right? At the end of the day, these are college kids, and this is supposed to be about education and about giving them lessons for life. I mean, it's not about the basketball. The basketball is just kind of the vehicle and the tool and the fun part of it. But the fact that the university and the administration and and obviously Rabbi Berman being there, and just the crowd in general and the importance that people gave to it, it showed what it meant to the university and what it meant to the greater Jewish community, to be a part of it. And I thought that was just a very, very cool and unifying thing. And I think our guys appreciated it also.
Has there been any talk? Has there been any talk about you guys somehow? I mean, I'm sure that's happened over the past few months accidentally, about being ambassadors or some sort of hub for some major unifying thing in yeshiva. Has there been talk about that?
You lagged out for a second, so just repeat that.
Oh, has there been talk about you guys representing some sort of, because you represent what you do, maximizing that somehow, becoming ambassadors for yeshiva, maybe within yeshiva, to
lighting the Hanukkah candles in the White House?
I mean, I imagine that's something that I think I imagine they've used some of the guys in some way, for some of the marketing stuff. I'm sure, to the extent they're allowed to. I'm not an expert on the NCAA rules with that. We leave that to the athletic department. But to the extent they're allowed to, I think they do. And I think honestly, just the stature of what the program has become a little bit over the last few years has kind of done that for them. The fact that it's drawing in the amount of people that are coming. I mean, it was crazy. Our playoff game sold out in like 3 minutes. And even down the stretch, the last like 5 regular season home games, if you came more than 20 minutes late, you couldn't get in. I mean, senior night on, I think it was a Saturday night, there were like 200 people outside the gym that could not get a seat.
It was unbelievable.
And it was for all intents and purposes, a meaningless regular season game.
And by the way, Coach, this is a testament to you and to what you've accomplished. And you've built, a program is defined by sustainable success. It's not, the Atlanta Falcons go to the Super Bowl one year and then they're 5-11 the next year. It's the Patriots, the Spurs, those types of franchises that have sustainable success. And it seems by what you've accomplished and by what you're doing, you've been recruiting guys now are coming to you. And I mean, OFIG is knocking on your door and saying, look, I want to be a part of this. This is something really special. And
I got a last question. I
want to address the question that was written in.
Oh, is there a question?
Yeah, I like it too. It's a good question.
Can see that.
Yeah,
how can you expect to pass up on D when he isn't sending his own? Wow. Oh, no, wait, no, Coach, what? Coach, I want to answer it. I want to answer that question.
One second. Our audience doesn't know what the question is.
Okay, okay. Wow. Okay, Coach, I'm sorry. I love you and I want to be your defender. So
I don't need a defender. I'm happy to answer the question. I think it's a really valid question.
Okay, so do you want to take it first or should I take it first?
It's up to you, your show.
Okay, so since it's my show and I'm getting paid the big bucks, I'm going to take this first. Here's the question. Wow. Woo! Shots fired. With all due respect to Coach Steinmetz.
By the way,
yeah.
When you start something with all due respect.
Yeah, there's no respect.
You take it
generally not, but that's okay. I don't need it. I'm good.
With all due respect to Coach Steinmetz, how can you expect a guy like Ryan to pass up on D1 schools when he isn't sending his own son to YU? I want to answer that question, and then you'll take it from there. But let me just start, because I think I have guys on my team who are on the baseball. I have guys in my shear who are on the baseball team, and they come in all the time, all upset that why are all the basketball guys getting all the accolade and we're not? And I say to them, like I said before, guys, the reason why you're pathetic, and I say this to them, is because you're not working out in the off season. You're not in the weight room. You're not honing your game. You're not getting up at 6 a.m. So you don't want to work, but yet you want all the accolade. You want all the fanfare. It doesn't work like that. I said the basketball team has built a culture, has built a program. I guarantee you, Coach Steinmetz, if your son was playing basketball, I guarantee you he'd be coming to Yeshiva University. That's first of all. Second of all, so our baseball program, for all purposes, if you're a guy who plays baseball, our baseball program, guys, don't kill me. I was the only fan at their only game this year. I was the only fan that was at every game that they played this year. Okay, so, but honestly, who's putting in the work? Your son wants to play legitimate baseball, and he's a pitcher, by the way. Don't think I don't do my homework. He's playing once every 5 days. He's going to make sure to uphold and maintain the standards of Kashrus and Shabbos and Mirza Shem Tefillin. Because, like I tell Ryan, I called Ryan last summer with his father. I said, Mr. Terrell, your son's left hand is for a lot more than shooting a layup. I said, you better make sure that son of yours puts on tefillin daily. Continue, Coach. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So I mean, I actually think the baseball program, hopefully, and I hope I'm right. I think it's up and coming. I think Coach Kraft, who's taken it over, is going to bring in some good. I know he's working hard on the recruiting, so I'm hoping it's up and coming. Truth of the matter is, I spoke about it earlier on. I don't ever like to discourage a kid when I'm recruiting from D1 Dreams. And the same conversation I had with Ryan, I had with my own kid. So when I spoke to Ryan initially about coming to YU, I told him, if D1 is your dream, chase it. And I tell kids this. I had a conversation with a kid literally 3 days ago, 6'8" kid that I'm working on, and no names and no details or information, but a kid who's still a couple years away that I'm hoping to try to get to come to YU, and he is considering D1 and D2 options. And I said, if that's your dream, then not only should you pursue it, let me know how I can help you pursue it, because I'm not looking for a kid to be in a place where he doesn't feel like he fits or a place that he doesn't want to be. I had the same conversation with my own kid because honestly, I was recruiting him for basketball. He's 6'5". All right.
Oh, your son?
And he can shoot it. So I wanted to get him to come to play at YU. And if you think that I don't still drop the hint every time I go downstairs to the basement where he's playing Fortnite and say, hey, what do you think about maybe playing basketball in college or playing both sports in college and coming to YU? He has his dreams and his goals, and his dreams and goals include playing Division I and also an opportunity to be part of the Major League Baseball draft if he has that opportunity. And this was the best way that he felt he could pursue it. So, all I can do is kind of lay out what Yeshiva offers, and he's very well aware, obviously. We've talked about the idea, if he does not end up in the draft, potentially, if the eligibility works out, playing his graduate year for us basketball wise in the future. But this was his dream, and he's my kid. I support him, and I'm always going to encourage him to chase his dreams within the the boundaries of certainly of religion and of being a good human being. And this is the way he wanted to go and what he wanted to chase. So, he's and honestly, he works extremely hard for it. So I can't take it away from him. But that's the way I can address that question. I treated him exactly the same way I treat any recruit, and I've had plenty of recruits turn me down, and he's just another one.
That's a great, Coach, it's a better answer than mine, even though I'm still going to say that the basketball team is where it's at because of all that you're doing and all that you're accomplishing. This was for our first guest to have Coach Steinmetz with us. And by the way, Coach, you got to do me a big favor. When we win next year's championship, you got to come back on again for us. I'm going to annoy you again. You got to promise me you're going to come back on when we win that championship.
Absolutely.
You're the best ever. I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to see you, Coach.
Same here. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
It's awesome. You're the best. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks so much, Coach.
It's awesome.
Right,
wow. We had Coach Steinmetz, Rabbi Ismach, our first guest ever. We had Coach Steinmetz. By the way,
that's very
I'm
exciting.
sorry, Rabbi Ismach. This was a 10. I mean, it's 10. We're supposed to finish at 10. And this was a 10. This was a 10.
Yeah, you were totally in your zone. I mean, Rabbi Ciment, I'm not sure. You should get on the recruiting team, frankly. You should be sitting in those living rooms. You should be giving the pitch, making the sale. I think you should be a big part of that.
By the way, I think I should speak to Coach Steinmetz's son and try to recruit him to Yeshiva University. I think I might have a little bit more success. What?
I think you know everything you need to know now. I think you need to know. But then again, that same question could be asked on any of us, any of the Rebbeim, where their kids go to school, or the kids don't go to school. You know, these things are complicated. It's a little simplistic to think that every single person who is involved in a single program is going to have their children built in their image and do exactly what it is that they do. So I think it's like, you know, it's complex. It's complex. And I know if you're faced with that question and I was faced with that question, thankfully he's the guy who's the special guest, not us. But no one's asking us that question. And it's a complicated question that all of us have to answer. So yeah, so for everybody who's on, all the people who are on Zoom, thank you very much. All the people who are listening on YouTube, this was a lot of fun. Everybody say goodbye to the beard.
We're on next Thursday night at 9 o'clock. We're on next Thursday night.
Yeah, we're working on a very, very special guest. We'll let you know who.
It ain't as special as this one. I'll tell you that much. This was awesome.
Dude, you gotta keep
I don't care. It's called spade a spade.
Then we're getting you off the recruiting team. You're off the recruiting team. That was quick. You're in, you're out. All right, Rabbi Ciment, this was a lot of fun. Everybody who's tuning in and listening, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be able to provide an hour of chevra, an hour of shmooze, an hour of hak. There's so much more to talk about. So much is on my mind, Rabbi Ciment. I know there's so much on your mind. Tonight was basketball. Tonight was the program.
Thanks to Coach Steinmetz. It was such an honor and a pleasure, and he truly is a role model for so many of us, including myself. So great job, Coach, and I can't wait to see you. And let's go. Let's go. While you
El Chayil. Next season, baby. All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Until next time. By the way.
Signing out.
Signing out.